Now think about that elevation sphere for normal humans to have the extra biopsis effect happen to them. Just like the Native American Indians did. The star gods, they looked like humans, but they had really exceptional abilities, if you will. They came from other dimensions, other planets, and they helped. A Sasquatch was just an in-between, but we're talking about humans that look like you, look like me, others, but they're different, and they came from other planets. And then we're talking about higher tenacious forms of different beings that encode like this, that can go into hyper-awareness and help human calling codes. This is one of the higher perception awareness streams that will happen for mankind as part of a link-up status for Starlink, a generalization status link for Nueralink, and a generalization status link for hyper nanotech streams.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 47. Blue, how are you doing?
I'm good today, Mike.
Awesome. Hey, I know we have a big show today in 47. What are we going to talk about today?
Well, one of the things we'll be discussing about today, very important details, will be about the Neuralink star generator perceptions, the hyper-awareness streams that generate the elevated subconscious streams that could pose between star seeds, algorithm input codes, and actually putting in different types of hyperpsyche awareness to mankind itself, generalizing them to affiliating hyper technologies within themselves.
Sounds like interesting stuff. And you know, I have a funny idea. We're going to mention a certain name a time or two a day today. This is what we do every show. It seems like everything goes back to that certain individual. And if you want more information about that individual, go back and check out episode 45. And Blue, I have to mention the hat. I see you got a new hat there. What's on your hat?
It's our department.
Very
and
good.
It also deals with Space Force. It deals with the elevated codes of effect of the EP portion of the force itself.
Good deal. Hey, if you want to get some of the official merchandise here, if you want to get a hat like Blue's wearing right there, just look at the link in this video or visit us on some of the socials and you'll see the link everywhere, or just message us. We'll send you the link. And by the way, make sure you go ahead and click like, subscribe, follow, click on notifications so you're always notified when we post new material. Blue, let's get right into it.
Absolutely. Hyper-awareness stream. One of the inner psyche uploads that can be elevated for mankind. Once processing goes into effect and the optimum bio-nanotech industries partake and deal with these, as well as other space organizations to maintaining. What is hyper-awareness? We were talking affiliation with powers that could help elevate. It grants you exceptional level of awareness and perception. You would have an acute sense of your surroundings, noticing details that others might miss. The heightened awareness could give you an advantage in situations requiring quick thinking, problem solving, and strategizing. Now, think about most humans only have a certain perception that they're encoding with. And yet there comes a generalization code of a DNA and its hyphenated levels. And those input speeds that only a few certain of humankind have. But most that exist without this dimension. But the few that do sign off to those types of DNA input streams. And that's how star seeds were one of them. But there are other regular humans that have this as well. But with the hyper-awareness, and putting that into effect with actual bio-nanotech technologies itself, recalibrates the signature alpha coding effect that will put into the extra DNA awareness streams that most of us starseeds have. And we're numerous types of species that have input upon one diametric code. There have been thousands of years on this planet that humans have not noticed the perceivable effects of other beings amongst them. With the intakes of the shells and higher intake in the DNA sequencing codes, a database of higher beings itself that are like humans but are not. Now think about that elevation sphere for normal humans to have the extra biopsis effect happen to them. Just like the Native American Indians did. The star gods, they looked like humans, but they had really exceptional abilities, if you will. They came from other dimensions, other planets, and they helped. A Sasquatch was just an in-between, but we're talking about humans that look like you, look like me, others, but they're different, and they came from other planets. And then we're talking about higher tenacious forms of different beings that encode like this, that can go into hyper-awareness and help human calling codes. This is one of the higher perception awareness streams that will happen for mankind as part of a link-up status for Starlink, a generalization status link for Nueralink, and a generalization status link for hyper-nanotech streams.
Wow. I heard a couple key words in there that I want to bring up, Neuralink and Starlink. So this means our good old friend Elon has something to do with this. Is that right?
Yes. Self-contact to self-analyzing what the human's personal subconscious effects could help instead of a decalibration of the backfiring mode. There are two elevated wavelengths that could be manually set for mankind through this. One of the other contacts is telekinetic touch, being able to manipulate the mind to matter. So you're able to utilize movement streams to holograms, like they see on Star Trek movies. Mind to matter. They utilize their mind, project that screen, and being able to affiliate. There are nano engrams or certain particles that exact upon the actual DNA format on the hands. And those molecules, if they are articulated with microanalogy points to the subconscious itself, can reevaluate the terms to the inner psyche. Being able to pro-enact to movement streams through hypergenesis code, through telekinetic touch. Being able to move things, if you will, through the mind. That's not impossible, like I said, through the Guinness Book of World Records, where Ripley's, believe it or not, through other things that they have posted out there, and you can go into old-fashioned circuses or where they show these people that they have these different abilities. They're not normal out there. There you go. Grasp that DNA and grasp something that could elevate the mind's intake speeds. These programs could help both the mind, body, and soul for agents or for beings that are above those on the lower code, being able to manually set themselves forward instead of back.
You know, this telekinesis part and the mind to device operator part here, I swear, I'm going to find it and I'm going to put it up in post here in this video, but I swear I saw something not long ago about, and I say within the past week or so, about someone that had physical disabilities and they had something like the Neuralink implanted, and they were able to operate their computer just by, obviously they couldn't move their arms or their legs. They were able to operate their computer that way. Is that along the same lines as what we're talking about here?
It's a form of mind to matter, yes, because that is a matter, a form of material, and it's utilizing your mind to that matter. Yes, it is that. It's proactive to numerous other types of forms that are going to come out there.
You know, and you had mentioned star seeds and other, you know, and a few humans that have this ability, and it makes me always flash back. And I'm getting chills thinking about this because I always seem to hit on some things, but you know, it makes me wonder if throughout history, people that we took for granted, people that were very smart, people like a Tesla, maybe an Einstein, maybe a Houdini even. I mean, there's a bunch of people that had exceptional skills. Is it possible that these people were kind of like the first that in our modern history that we could reflect back on that possibly had this type of ability?
Well, those are the first, yes, possible, and they're also ones that have been grasped by scientists and other types of diplomatic governmental scenes to recalibrate and re-diagnose what could be actually put into a signature effect. All that information that's put out there, all those special people put it out there, don't think it's just dismissed. There are ways to reevaluate their terms and make it manage to the system itself through that. And there are certain beings that do not, like Hitler. They're negative alpha zones. They have self-programmable effects of utilization on technologies in our alpha spheres, or even psychic abilities, and did not obtain it right. And then they had other governmentals or others that want to follow in that step. That's not a progressive scene to maintain things forward. If we want to maintain things forward, we got to go look at the good ethics of those that have the good qualities and maintain that and manage it, not grasp from negative standards and biopsis waves.
You know, I'm glad you brought up Hitler, because that was my next question is, do you think there's a possible, either warranted or unwarranted, a military application for this process? I don't know if that would be good or bad.
He's a time traveler who helped create time traveling devices and negative alpha waves and circuitry codes through numerous times of indexing speeds. He's went through several timelines. There have been proofs of that. Then he disappeared at one Causeway event.
Interesting stuff. Now, is this something that I need to just be aware of, or is this something I need to be actionable on as a regular human who doesn't have these special abilities? Is this something I should be wary of? Is this something I should be accepting of?
It's something humankind would eventually become accepting of, because if it's programmed right, and we do have one other ability we would be discussing about, and that's telekinetic regeneration. Being able to, or tactile telekinesis, being able to self-regenerate and form a type of bubble around the affiliated form itself. That bubble will either protect them from negative of standard codes, whether it's electromagnetic deficiency field, something that would pretty much try to hurt them, and or cause an affiliated regeneration mode upon themselves, so they can regenerate, be able to heal. Think about the movie X-Men, Wolverine. Think about other beings. Think about other movies similar to the aspect, even space movies. Besides quantum medical beds, there will eventually become a time where humans will have a chance to self-regenerate.
You know, it seems fascinating to me, because I think we've touched on it before about like a lizard being able to replace its tail if it gets, bitten off or knocked off in some way. And you bring up like the X-Men there. I did see something relatively new on top of the quantum beds. There was somebody who had put out something about some sort of, not necessarily a cloaking device, but almost like a blanket that worked in the same way as a med bed. Is that related or no?
Well, there are several other types of technologies that could be placed out there with similar affiliation zones. And it depends on what type of industry manages it and how it's going to be placed out there.
This may take away the need to go to a doctor, maybe, or if you could just heal yourself. Shoot, think of all the world's problems it would solve. But I have a feeling that a technology like this, the big corporations, especially big pharma, big medical entities, might object to this and fight against it because it's going to kill their cash cow. It's going to kill the medical system, I would think. No?
No and yes. Once this would go into effect, there could be several other types of medical sciences that can be placed out there for mankind. Even with self-regeneration or self-healing, there's still several unwavering factors that could harm mankind. And there's still several ways that they would have to have some type of medicinals to arrange themselves and where they're living at, so they're not disrupting both wavelengths.
It's a lot of fascinating information. If you do like I do, folks, go back and listen again. And you can do that at any one of our episodes. Simply look up a former episode and look up the topic that, interests you, and then click on the little blue timestamp right next to it. And you instantly have access to talk about any of the topics we've talked about in any of our shows, this being our 47th show. And something I enjoy every episode is the SCP Foundation. Are we ready to talk about the SCP Foundation?
Absolutely. SCP-405. We were just discussing about telepathy. The telepathy virus. But don't take it as the same thing. This is something that had to been a mass or in-wide infectious disease and or platonic code effect that manually set humans factors backwards. It's unknown origin that caused the uncontrolled development of telepathic abilities on humans. The typical progression of the disease is as follows. There are numerical amounts of cases that do not follow this pattern or primary stages of following of affiliated movement codes. They have stages when this happens. But this type of virus, because it runs on some type of Hertz data stream, and it goes into the membrane itself, and depending on how high or how low that Hertz membrane stream goes, will depend on how hard the initial range hits the person. And by the way, this would be considered as a class Keter. It's dangerous. So these initial stages, between 2 to 7 days after exposure, begin to hear higher order thoughts in nearby subjects, seemingly at random. Then they become uncordingly the thought patterns upon the human specimens that get in self-diagnosis. They rarely realize they hear vocalizations that are not spoken. Secondary stage, between 7 to 10 days after exposures, they now hear all conscious thoughts of nearby individuals. They'll become aware of their telepathic nature. In some subjects, thought projections first observed. Subjects usually complain, though, of earache and other types of issues going on. It's where it starts getting interesting. 10 to 14 days. The abilities increase dramatically, typically to about 200 meters, but occasionally far further. And when this happens in fewer cases, subjects have pre-existing telepathic capacity and unable to take it, shown to grow especially out to several kilometers, leading a terminal stage. Subject hears all conscious thoughts of humans within this range, as well as the individuals are speaking directly in front of them, into their ear. Now think about how that would harm someone. Vocalization and frequency, they get sleep deprivation, they get negative noise levels. It goes on and on. There are numerical stages, and as each stage goes more up and up, the worse it gets, to the point where they either die off, decapacitation mode, suffer persistent seizures, or they just can't take it because their cerebral cortex scan, the audio cortex scan, are processing too high, too fast of a level. This type of disease would have been maintained at probably most likely through certain types of manipulated levels of frequencies to a type of higher psychic inner subconscious awareness. And the individuals who do survive this, they have to keep in a facility because of the way their symptoms are.
This is fascinating to me because I already know we're going to get some hypochondriacs sending us notes and messages, asking questions, because it's almost like a drug commercial like you might see on mainstream media TV, where the big pharma is trying to sell you a drug by spitting out some general things that you may be experiencing. Oh, then you need this magic potion. Is there, now we all know secure, contain, protect, that's SCP. Is this, it's just the one that's secured and contained and protected, or is this the one is this something there's more than one of and I should be on guard against?
Well, there have been a couple areas that have been diagnosed out there, but they usually do their best to keep it self-monitored because of the activity that's been spread.
Mm. And I know you said Keter, and that means a bad guy. What about the next SCP we're going to talk about?
257, Professor William Woodworth's collection of curiosities. This, my friends, is considered safe. This is a zoological park, an abandoned zoological garden and park located in the United Kingdom. The zoo itself describes as a collection of curiosities named for William Woodworth, billed as the greatest explorer and naturalist aside of reality. And we're going to talk a little towards the end of who this person is or what, because this person wasn't from this dimension. Now, according to promotional materials found within SCP-257, the zoo was founded in 1899 to educate the gentlemen and ladies of England about nature and the many strange beasts encountered by explorers on their travels. No permits, building licenses, or planning permissions have been found that correspond to the location or appearance of SCP-257. Now, what gets interesting with this is because they have a lot of several unknown species that come in perimeter here. And they have certain scientists and organizations that monitor these species and decide whether they're safe or not for mankind.
You know,
when and how and where they appear. Pardon?
No, I was just go ahead.
When and how, where they appear is still unknown. But that goes into the point of who and what this person was. And where this person was. Sorry.
Is this something that I can actually... Is this something that maybe people in the past, maybe our ancestors at some point were aware of this and they didn't understand what it was, and then before, the SCP took it over?
Well, what happened is that this certain person left, and he left it abandoned, and he left a note. And on the note from the desk of Professor Woodsworth says one thing. Do you see, gentlemen, zoological enthusiast special containment procedures foundation said, as you are no doubt aware by now, I have decided to entrust you with my zoo and my collection of rare and exotic animals. While I take leave of absence, you are straight thinking, responsible men in science. You will no doubt be able to look after them. This is what I just said. Yes, the foundation was obviously affiliated for a while. And if not, they had scientists and organizations before that. And after my travels through blank and system, I decided to visit 13th moon of Inalulus as the next stop on my safari. 13th moon. This was not a human. This was an ultra-dimensional that visited this realm and brought species from another dimension to this realm.
That's
and
fascinating.
He is expecting mankind to take care of these species, look after them, and see what they can do with it.
That's fascinating stuff there. What's the next SCP we're going to talk about?
All right, SCP-060. In his name, the property containing this contained a burned-out secluded house. And according to civilian sources, the house's previous owner was of a Jonathan Corhill, who was reported to have been a somewhat solitary eccentric, with a tendency towards bitterness and nihilism. He was reported as a missing person for a while, cut off all ties to family members and friends around this area. When his brother had found out and he did return, he found out he was getting into some type of occultism. And when this happened, they're initially pushed into when he had dealt with these and he had that severe amount of lower defamatory code about himself towards family. And this is what's with humans. They have to be careful because they can create their own paranormal accounts, just like this person. This is caused by a normal person that got into certain types of magic. from other types of paranormal affiliated codes and indexated him with it. And pretty much think about an internal combustion scene, platonically leveled out with this being, because he had all that hate within himself. And now it creates a paranormal effect because the entity was stuck and had that type of scene of effect.
This is fascinating to me, because I know we've talked about in the past about certain areas, and we just talked about the collection of curiosities. Where you probably can't tell me, but I mean, where on the planet is this? Can you give me a general location?
I believe I said it was in Minnesota, right?
Oh, okay. All right, good. I must have missed that. Sorry about that. Minnesota. Now, that means so. They put up with some harsh winters there. Does it matter the time of year with this?
Well, not really when it comes into something that's creating a high energetic effect itself.
The only reason why I bring that up is we're kind of fortunate. We don't really get harsh winters here in the South, here in the Southeast United States. So it's fascinating to me when things happen in other areas, and I'm like, wait, I wonder if this affects it, or I wonder if that affects it. But this is definitely a dangerous area.
Yes, and they have monitors upon the zone because of the type of effect it can cause. No one's around the area. And if they are around the area, they cannot have any type of signature fire coding. Anything that would cause a fire, or I mean, it did. They put it out there. It ignites this being, and there's only one. It's not like there's several. It's just one entity at a time. Once he's doused out, he dissolves. But this person, and if this is the case, and it was an exact person. Maybe there could be ways that the Foundation can find an affiliated wavelength to decommission whatever negative stance had put him through that in the first place, to withdraw the entity and relieve him from the negative wavelengths he's still commissioning out there, because it's obvious he's still breeding that.
Fascinating stuff. Every time we talk about the SCP, my mind is just blown, and it just blows me away. So again, I'm going to go back and listen again, and I find this SCP very fascinating. Are we ready to talk about your positions with the Space Force and the Federation?
Absolutely. Just the other night, around the area of West Palm Beach, there was an affiliated zoning effect of several star units. These star units, I sent you a video of them. They're not the SpaceX rockets. They did not leave a tail. I'm going to debunk this right now for people who want to say something. Because at the same night, they had an elevated energetic mode to maintaining hyperstar units of awareness. We had motion to moving things on a higher scene of electromagnetic fields upon the foundations of the area. There have been outer spatial and drift effects as well. And it goes into some of these eclipses that are coming, and one that already just happened last night. The one that happened last night, and I have had many people asking me, what's going to happen? What is it about? These star units help represent and maintain higher codes that are going along with the Nibiru systems. There are planets. There are 2 planets in hyperhibernation above here, X and Y. This is one of the main reasons. Self-monitorization upon the zones of effect. And what's happening in preamble with the eclipse and lunar and or solar accounts, which most humans are not aware of. There was a high energetic eclipse calling code last night that platonically pretty much elevated a lot of areas around here, and as well as monitoring the zones of the hyphenated levels that have been commissioned because of one of the Nibiru systems.
It's a fascinating time we're in, because I intended to stay up and observe this eclipse, this lunar eclipse last evening from the day we're recording this here. And then, of course, we're talking about in the next, few days here, in the next 2 weeks on the 8th, a solar eclipse, and a lot of people think, and I see people discounting it, and I see people alarmed by it. They think there's something more happening or something more gonna happen that comes with this. Do I need to be alarmed? Do I need to be worried about this?
Just like what I said, they have to do with the injuncture system effects of the Nibiru itself, maintaining what stability is going on and upon it underneath the actual planet. If there was a concern, they may be some type of electromagnetic interference lines again.
Right.
Cutoff scenes, which have been happening on and off.
It's fascinating to me because I did see something on the news this morning, how with the weather patterns that we're having right now, and we've talked about HAARP before, that a lot of people in the northern U.S., in the extreme northern U.S., like along the Canadian border, can actually, for some reason, with the weather patterns, see those green lights, the Aurora Borealis and so forth. Is there a relationship there or no?
Well, that's systematic lights and equation that core connect to the inner realms. They are paranormal as well as higher psychic awareness. There's electromagnetic fields that properties circulate through that between the dimensions itself.
Wow. You said it. I couldn't believe that. I couldn't begin to say something like that. It's fascinating to me. We do have to move on, though. Let's go ahead and jump into our ET of the week.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about the blue avians. And a lot of humans have heard about these, but not a lot know about them. Now, the avian motherships themselves have semi-ocular effects of camouflaging more of a differentiality node that progresses into the hyperscenes. And these did deal with the ancient Council of Nine, which are now 5. They're subspecies most of the avian signature calling codes of birds. And the ones that still are proactive and subatomical effect that have bipedal structure, that are still on and off circuitry codes for this realm, but most are off dimension. They visit proactive sphere, hyperdimensional sequencing base. Now, with these type of star units from self-camouflage mode in the sky, they resonate at a pinkish glow. Now, they do have wings on the star units. The actual physical units have a type of wing structure upon them, meaning their looks upon them or more hypermolecular through that type of mode. Some of the military agents or in military zoning affairs have similar ships now or units and affiliation that kind of represented either these species or other subspecies of a higher awareness. Now, these beings are kind, they're highly intelligent. They, however, don't show themselves often, like I said, obviously because of what had happened. Most of them are in avian form, to protect their race. If you ever stumble across them, call it an honor, because humans, ones that do, most of them see them through their mind's eye. If they have a proactive form where they're taken up into star units to see these types of species, call it an honor. They're the ancient galactic intergalactic council. They are protectors. They guide. They embrace the souls who are highly important to the light. And they will uplift people, humankind. They're very protective beings. And they have joy and abundance within themselves.
You know, two quick things pop into my mind and 2 quick questions here. And I'll ask them both at the same time here. One is, they say that dinosaurs who supposedly roamed this earth many years ago, they say that birds are connected to the dinosaurs somehow. And the second part of the question is, there's been this recent thing, and I say within modern history, where I've been able to see, at least through social media, people claiming birds are under some sort of governmental control, they're spies, they're not real, they're mechanical and so forth. Is there any connection to this avian species and dinosaurs and or people that claim that birds aren't real?
Both are no and no. No and no.
Okay. And this is a peaceful variety here. This is somebody that is here to help us.
Yes. But some avians do come from interplanetary or Earth and realm species, or species that were founded several thousands of years ago. Most of the avian signature codes, especially on hyphenated levels, and they were commissioned to scientists and given out on stores and all this other shit, and new species coming along are inbred to Earth and realms or intermediated through as avians in the proactive score.
That's interesting stuff. I'm glad we're talking about the SCP. I'm glad we talk about ET of the week, because it breaks things down for me and it makes it easier to understand. And again, you can go back and look up any SCP we've talked about, and you can go back and look at any ET of the week we talked about. We got over 20 of them right now. So I'm glad we're able to do this. And just like that, we're out of time here, Blue. It's amazing how time flies when we're having fun. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And we look forward to seeing you in the next episode 48. Thank you, Blue.
Absolutely.